Hello and welcome back to the Race to a Trillion video series. In this video, we're going to cover book 3 and we're going to talk about COVID, big tech, and trillions of dollars. In this book, we get to an interesting thing in that the COVID pandemic, which occurred in the United States between 2019 and 2021, changed things significantly in our country. Uh, Not only was it a huge catalyst for tech and tech services, it also, the federal government put a lot of money into the system. And it really, it changed everything, quite frankly. And I think the companies that benefited the most were big tech. And so it was an extraordinary time. And I think when you really get down to it, a how there was no trillion-dollar companies, and now there's now there's companies worth more than 3 trillion from a time period of 2018 to 2024, uh, speaks uh, of something occurred, and that thing that occurred was a global pandemic. And I think I think a separate book uh, should be written just discussing what the United States did in the face, or maybe China as well, did in the face of those pandemics, and to ensure that we didn't have a huge depression or recession. And so I think a lot of money came out of those systems and ended up in tech companies, and that's why you see a tech company that was around since the 70s and wasn't worth $1 trillion, and then suddenly becomes worth $1 trillion in 2018. And then we have a pandemic in 2019 and 2020 and 2021. And suddenly by 2024, they're worth 3 trillion. So, the curve really goes straight up there for a while. And I think I think the catalyst and, you know, what happened there was a global pandemic. I think what's also interesting though is like, okay, well, we have that straight up portion of the curve there, and it must have been because of government uh, releasing more money into the system. But I think we're also going to see the same kind of curve for the first individual trillionaire, and I don't think that that's necessarily going to be associated with government infusions of cash. And so I don't think it should be overstated that the only reason we have $1 trillion company or companies with $3 trillion is because of the pandemic. I think it was definitely a part of it, but I don't think it was the only factor. And so in this book, we touch on that and just the transition of just becoming completely um, um, uh, digitally transformed, I think is the phrase, and there it is. It accelerated the digital transformation of this country. And, being a person that kind of lived through the digital revolution, I mean, when I was a kid, there was analog things. Now everything's digital. And, to see all of that stuff kind of come online and then see the progression of it, to start out with things that are just not digital and then to have everything that's digital, it's just been it's a wonderful thing, and it's something that has really transformed the country, and certainly has made our lives better, in every way, and certainly much more consistent. And you think about just infrastructure, etc., how much of a challenge those kind of things are running on analog systems. And the fact that we were able to put a man on the moon and put people into space on non-digital systems is just, quite frankly, mind-boggling. But well, we were able to do it. So I think that this book touches on the COVID and pandemic and how it contributed to trillion-dollar companies. And I think it's an interesting point, and I think it definitely needs to be expanded upon. And I think if you look at the charts and to see what happened during those years, I think you'll see the tech companies that we mentioned earlier in the program, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Apple, were huge benefactors to the digital transformation that occurred during the pandemic. Well, this is a touch base kind of concept, and we're going to move on to book number 4. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.